Yeah, don't do what I did when I recorded a lecture a while back where I forgot to close my internet window, and so my Facebook messages were pinging, and throughout the recording, this ping, ping, something must have been happening in Warhammer World because the chat windows were going crazy.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to ask for Soundcheck now. Soundcheck.
Hello.
Do we have people in chat? I can't see the chat, so it's always a surprise to me when they say anything.
All right.
I think it says that one person is watching, and it might be me.
All right, we can. I think the sound is okay.
Oh, that person. I know that person from our Twitch.
Caps lock.
Yeah.
All right. For some reason, Francois is resizing, but okay. And Colin resizing. All right. Okay. Welcome everybody to CanHammer Podcast, episode 197. 2 episodes in 1 week. What? We're going to take a month off after this, Francois.
And we're closing in on the big 200.
Yeah, 200. So we had ideas about what to do for our big 200th episode. We thought we'd do a Chris in memorial episode, and then he could come back 25 episodes later from death. But no, we won't do that. We'll think of something else. So welcome everybody to tonight's podcast. And tonight we have on with us Francois, as usual. Nick, after stating publicly online on Sunday that he was coming, discovered that actually today is his wife's birthday.
Oh, that's not good.
So wisely decided not to join us tonight. And we have special guests joining us from Seattle. You're still near Seattle, right? That's your nearest large city.
I might be actually. You know what? I'm closer to Vancouver.
Okay.
And as we said, I'm Canadian for this evening. This has been a difficult day to be an American. I'm Canadian. So from British Columbia, I'm Colin from Best in Faction.
All right, honorary Canadian Colin joining us. And so tonight we're going to talk about Hammer Out Cancer virtual charity event. And so Colin's here to talk to us about that. You may recognize Colin from our stream as a guest before. And of course, he is from Best in Faction podcast, as he said, and he runs Charity Hammer. And we've been pretty intimately involved with Charity Hammer over the last couple of years, helping to run one of the streams. And I had the great fun of going out to Charity Hammer last year, which is the last time I saw you at CanHammer team.
Right.
But which seems like
also known as the last tournament I went to.
It seems like so long ago. We were just talking about it.
Yes.
In the before times.
Yeah. So he's really great to have Colin on tonight to talk about this event, which is coming up, not this weekend, coming next weekend.
Right.
And before we talk too much about it, I'm just going to put it straight out there. You can see in the ticker tape, www.charityhammer.com is the website. You can see the schedule there and everything. There's a link to donate there. So please ask people to donate generously. And it's always a great cause. And it's always a lot. Wall-to-wall 40K for a whole weekend, basically.
Yes.
All right. So ignoring the fact that Capitol Hill is currently burning down, we're going to go on with our topic of choice, which is the Hammer Out Cancer event. So why don't you tell us about how that came around, Colin?
Well, I think that it makes a lot of sense to start off by talking a little bit about Charity Hammer, because that's really where this comes from. So about 2 years ago now, I was talking to Nick Nanavati about the idea that there wasn't enough streaming of 40K, and also that there wasn't enough highly competitive streaming of 40K. And remember that the tournament coverage that people are doing, that like the last LVO that was so great, that's all a relatively new phenomenon. So we were talking about that years ago, and we just realized that there was an opportunity here to do something neat, but we wanted to do it for a good purpose. So we started the event Charity Hammer that is basically a stream house party once a year, hosted by me. It had 33 people, something like that, participated last year. We streamed for 2.5 days on 3 streams the entire time. and made just a ton of high-end content, of just great competitive content. We put a great deal of thought into how are people actually going to how are they going to appreciate this. So we have stream hosts that help you walk through the game and make sure you understand what's going on, and we make sure that the people playing are engaging and talk to the people watching. And that's been really great. And that was for primarily to raise money for Child's Play, which is a charity that provides games and toys and things to sick kids, basically. It's originally founded by the Penny Arcade guys, who are actually local to me out here in the Pacific North. Oh, sorry, in British Columbia, right. So we did that for 2 years, and we raised $35,000. And now that's actually American dollars. I don't know it in Canadian, which is weird because I'm from
it's
Canada.
Like 100 grand.
Yeah, right. So we're going to keep doing it. And as we got closer and closer this year, there was no way. There was no way it was going to be possible. And if we did do it, it wasn't going to be the same. For one, a great deal of the participation in Charity Hammer is Canadian. A lot of the people involved last year were Canadian, and none of them can come because the borders are closed. None of them should come because of COVID, but the borders are also closed. So, and then on top of that, a bunch of the players that participate live in Florida and Pennsylvania and Southern California and Texas. It's all over the place, and it's not socially responsible to have any of those people fly out here right now. We don't need to go into it, but basically, I believe that you should not be flying unless it's an emergency. That's my personal opinion. So, we decided that we'd push off Charity Hammer. I'm optimistic that we're going to get people vaccinated, and later in the year, it's going to be possible to hold it and hold it right and do it the way that it is, which is a house party with everybody all on top of each other, which right now seems really irresponsible. So we were just not going to do anything. And we got the news that a incredible friend of Chuck's best friend for life, basically, and an incredible friend of mine and of the podcast, Vincent Price, he came down with a very serious kind of cancer. And in the United States, where Vince lives, and of course I don't, as previously stated, in the United States where Vince lives, the healthcare system doesn't support people with cancer very well. And so while you're dealing with this incredibly awful thing, you also are worried about the state you're going to leave your family in. Financially, is what I mean. So we wanted to do something to help Vince, because he's people that walks into a room and everyone feels love. He's been playing 40K for so long that he originally taught me how to play it when I was 16 years old. And he has been going to tournaments for a lot of that time, and everybody on the West Coast, a lot of people on the West Coast in the tournament scene know who he is and what love he has to share. So we want to do something for him. And so the question came up, how do you do a mini Charity Hammer that is socially responsible? And Darren is one of the 5 medical professionals whose advice I asked in order to come up with restrictions that even made it work. And nobody wants to hear me go through all of them. So I'll just say I'm going to write them up and make them public for anyone who wants to see them. It's over the top. A local doctor and 4 40K playing doctors have all advised me on this, and we're doing it. There's no 100% safety, but this is as close as you're going to get. So it is 8 gamers, and one full-time stream host, all in the Pacific Northwest. Nobody's traveling in. And they are the best ambassadors for the game I could find. People that could, the best ambassadors of the game that could follow the quarantine and COVID testing restrictions. But the best, they're some of the best guys in the Pacific Northwest. They're the people that you're going to see. If you came out here to play in a major, this is the people that are in that top 10. That's the people that I have grabbed. So it's not the same as grabbing the best players I possibly can, plus Darren and I. It's more like this is the best people in the Pacific Northwest. So they're going to come out here, we're going to rotate people in and out and keep them all apart. But we're going to play on 2 streams for a bunch of it, but 1 stream the entire time, starting 2:00 Pacific on Friday the 15th and going till 6:00 Pacific on Sunday. We're going to do a double elimination RTT. And that RTT has some incredibly accurate representations of the meta of what's been doing well. We had Art of War help us with what should the list be like, and we made sure to get people that are competent in those lists. So you're going to see like what is at tournaments right now played into each other, and we're going to do commentating over that. So over those RTT games, we're going to have all of the Charity Hammer folk that can't come, like Darren, are going to commentate on those games and tell you what you're seeing and what's going on. And unlike when you watch like LVO or whatever, you'll also be able to hear the players because we're not worried about that at all for something like this. So we're going to have the RTT, bunch of other games, lots of different interesting matchups. Every faction pretty much represented. No one's bringing Tau.
Yes.
Frankly, we couldn't come up with a reason for anyone to play Tau. And I don't think anyone's playing Craft Old Eldar either, and that's the weird one. That no one's playing Craft Old Eldar.
Not even you?
I think now that I think no one's playing Drukhari either. No, I'm not playing Craft Old Eldar. They bore the heck out of me right now. No, I'm primarily a White Scars and Tyranids player at the moment. So that's what we're doing. We're going to take donations all throughout that weekend. So the donations will also enter you into a prize pool to win loot. And Darren, you saw just how serious I am about this and how much stuff we give away. It's a lot. So every $30 you donate, you get a raffle ticket into the system. You donate $60, that's 2. You donate $50, it's 1. So play the game. It's a purposeful game. You should play it. At the end of the weekend, we will have a mega prize that will be drawn at the very, very end, and that's for a commission painted Necron army.
Like a whole army.
It is it's a 2,000 point army, but yes, a whole army. Like you now have a 2,000 point list. That list is being designed by Chuck and other Necron players to make sure it's reasonable. And it's actually a subset of the Necron army that I won from the Nova charity auction years ago. I later sold it, and it's been passed around, and it ended up back on Chuck, and he's like, well, I'm painting my own Necrons, so let's give these away to raise some money. So Necron Army will be given away, lots of other prizes. The other big giveaway is a new in-box night, and the way you win that is we're going to have a challenge, actually, is how it's spelled, bracket up on the internet, and you're going to be able to predict who's going to win the RTT, and whoever does the best at that will win that night. So some pretty good prizes and some great content at a time where there just isn't a lot going on. And it also gives us a great opportunity to kind of show what 40K looks like if you follow all of the rules the doctors tell you to follow, which will be interesting.
Yeah, that's amazing. And we don't need to spend too much time to talk about the precautions you're taking, but as a medical professional, I must point out that you are taking a lot of precautions, probably above and beyond what most people are taking. And we all know over the last year, there's been a lot of probably quite irresponsibly held large tournaments in many places. So it's always good to know that these precautions are being taken, even to the extent of everyone having separate meals, which is, pretty impressive.
Oh yeah, we're not feeding people. People are feeding themselves on their own schedule, away from everybody. Yeah, and nobody's staying here either, which is a big difference. The only reason we can do this is because we moved, and we happen to have extra buildings on the property where people can play games and be away from everyone. So I can rotate people in and out, masked and quarantined and COVID tested, and I can rotate them in and out to play the games without them coming anywhere near the living space that my family lives in. And that's really that was the final thing that Stephanie and I realized made it work, is that we're not doing this Charity Hammer is a bunch of dudes sleeping on my couch in my home, like next to my wife. That's what Charity Hammer is. That doesn't really, and feeding 25 nerds pizza at the same time is not really a great way to keep contagion down. So, It's a little bit wild. It's still going to be great fun, but it's going to be a very different feel because there's not going to be the kind of the party atmosphere not on stream, right? We're not going to let people just hang out and be all on top of each other when they're not on stream.
Yeah, and that was the cool thing about Charity Hammers when you weren't playing, which was most of the time you were just hanging out, talking to people. Like it was really really good fun. But it's what we can do right now. It's actually probably harder to go to Hammer Out Cancer than it is to enter Canada right now. There's more restrictions.
Yeah, it could be. We are doing, we are doing COVID tests, and there are some members of the community that I wanted to have come who have things like kids in person school and stuff like that, and all of them dropped out just to be extra cautious. So like, this is like work from home people. It's a little it is as safe as we're going to get. No one's going to get COVID from our stream event.
Yeah.
And that was the goal, and I'm happy. I'm proud to say that that's the direction we're heading.
Excellent.
So, but nobody wants to hear about COVID.
No.
Or what's going on in the weird America right now.
So the donate link is on charityhammer.com. There's a big button there. When does that go live, or is it live right now?
It's live.
Okay.
It's live. We've raised $300 so far, which compared to $35,000, I guess that doesn't sound like a great deal. But it's a lot when you just started. And we're starting to pull the names together for the raffles now. We always do a preview stream of all the new tech that we are upgrading a bunch of stuff, but we always do that on Thursday night. So Thursday night will be the first time you actually see us playing. But we'll start for certain on Friday, and we'll go all the way through. CanHammer will be the second stream, and I think that's mostly it's mostly prime time. Yeah. Basically, it's really fun for Europe that we're playing all the time, for Europe and Australia and New Zealand. It's really fun. But the actual reality is the viewers are much lower at night than they are during the day. So we're going to run 2 streams during the day and 1 stream at night, unlike Charity Hammer. Frankly, we're all playing more than we ever play at these things because of the small number of people, even with the condensed amount of content. I did mean to say, if I didn't earlier, all of last year's Charity Hammer content, while 8th edition 40K, so maybe it's not as exciting for people, but it's all on YouTube. Yep. And all of this content will be on YouTube as well. At no point do we paywall this content. It's out there. Excuse me, out there and ready for you to view it whenever you'd like. It's more fun to watch it live, of course, because we will interact with you.
Yeah, all the both Charity Hammer stuff is under playlists on our channel, and it's just there. You can anyone can access it. So, yeah. All right.
And I would just add, I would just add that this is a really fun time in 40K. I know that the other thing we were going to talk about is 9th edition, so this will segue well to that. But 9th edition is the most fun. It is better than 8th edition was, and there's a lot of change, which is inherently interesting, and there's new codexes, which is inherently interesting, and so different lists are popular. So like this stream will be a lot of stuff you've not seen, and that's really fun. So
yeah,
I think I did an excellent segue for you there.
Yeah. Well, before we go on to that, like we tried to we did it was around this time, I think, Francois, last year was the Hammer and Anvil. Was that? Did you go to that? It was a local charity event.
Yeah. No, I couldn't go to that one. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. But no, I wasn't.
And it's quite hard to organize charity events if you're not like a registered charity or something. And so whenever these do happen, people just assume that because it's for charity, it's very easy to pull together. But in fact, it's quite the opposite. And that was just a local event with nobody flying in. I mean, I can't imagine trying to organize Charity Hammer last year. That would just be crazy.
Well, this year it's been terrible. The planning this has been planning this event, which is significantly smaller, but with all the additional restrictions, has been just incredibly stressful. Many tense conversations with my wife to make sure, like, you are comfortable with this, right? Like it was a lot, and the planning's done. Now all I've got left to do is I'm literally painting white scars. They're on my desk right here. That's all I have left to do between now and the event, and then get some tables put together. But I've done all of the planning part of it. The old advertising and painting is all that's left, so I can be fully painted on stream.
Nice. Mm-hmm. All right. So, other than yourself, any people that people might recognize that they might see next weekend?
Sure. Let's just go through the roster. So. Chuck Arnett, and Mitch Pelham will both be involved. Chuck and Mitch are my co-hosts from Best in Faction. And then we have Tyler Bortel, who's a Tyranid player from the Pacific Northwest, who really values bodies. So he plays incredible Horde Tyranids. He's got a list he'll be playing on the streams that's 3 of the barbed Hierodules.
Yeah.
I think is how you say that. And those things are basically inexpensive knights. So because they're inexpensive knights, you get to put like 80 models with them to hold the board and do things.
They're awesome.
So it's like this knight list that's just like, it's Tyranids being like, I made this knight list. It seems way better than your knight list. I'm not sure how that happened. So he likes that a great deal. And so he'll be playing that in the RTT. Then we have Peter Akey, who is a GT winning guy from the Pacific Northwest. Peter plays a bunch of different stuff. His obsession is deathcore. So the deathcore writers are currently good. I know that may be a bomb I'm dropping, but like the deathcore writers of Krieg or whatever they're called are like the most durable model for points that there is. They're just not OBSEC.
Well, so he built stuck with a guard army around them. That's the other issue.
Yeah, right. Well, but there is good stuff. Like full payload Manticores is good, and tank commanders are good. So he's got like the best stuff from guard with some Raven Guard, which will be really interesting for the RTT. And I went through his list, and I hadn't seen his list before, and I love it. I think it's great. So then Zach Nelson will be there. Zach is either Zach or I is the most accomplished player in the Pacific Northwest for the past few years. And I'm just going by number of tournament wins. The two of us have won the most tournaments. Zach will be playing Chaos. That's his obsession at the event. Because the Death Guard book won't be out in time, he's playing 9 Mythic Light Haulers. Mythic,
I think.
Mythic?
I think, yeah.
Okay. I really have no idea, so I say we go with that. Let's see. So Zach and the other guys, and then Paul Winters, who is a wonderful guy from the local community who has a gorgeous Slaanesh army and only plays Slaanesh ever. So the joke was on him when 9th edition came around that Slaanesh became S tier. There's Slaanesh lists that like not Renegade Open. Renegade Open? Or Iron Halo or something. One of the big majors was won by Slaanesh recently. So he'll be playing that list on stream for us. And I am forgetting somebody, and that feels terrible. Oh, Noah Badome, is another tournament-winning guy from the Pacific Northwest. He plays everything. I think he owns all of the armies. He'll be playing AdMech because AdMech is quite good right now, and we needed it represented. Chuck will be playing Sisters to kind of round out what's good, and I'll be playing White Scars. Because someone has to.
Good choice.
I actually really enjoy playing the army, but I've now played it enough that I understand how broken it is, and so it is so over the top. Like I've played 16 games with it, and I haven't won by less than 20 points. It's just crazy. I'd actually rather be playing my Tyranids list, so I'll also play that as well. Someone says they're Corona trikes, Colin. I don't know what that means.
I'm not sure what the Corona trikes are.
Well, I don't know what that is. No, is it a COVID joke, or are we talking beer here? I don't like low quality beer. Maybe it's a low quality beer joke. A beer and it needs a fruit in order to be considered okay. Then it wasn't a good beer. That's what I think.
Oh.
Francois excited about my hot take on Corona.
Yeah, no, I hate Corona.
It's talking about.
He says the
blight
haulers.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, all right. I get that joke. Yes, your joke checks out. Excellent. I think that was the 8 people. Zach, Peter, Paul, and no Mary, Chuck, myself, Tyler. So, yeah, I think that's the 8. So and then Harrison. Harrison who plays Custodes. So that's how Darren knows him. Harrison's going to be playing Blood Angels for us, so that we have a good representation of some different Marine missions. And he'll also be playing Custodes on the stream. So that's the people that are involved. All well-known tournament goers if you live out here, for sure. But Zach and I are probably the only ones who And the co-hosts are the only ones that you might have maybe run into across the country more.
Yeah, shout out to Harrison. His partner made me an amazing coffee that morning when I had this crazy migraine, and has a massive basement with more Forge World in it than even me. So, you walk right down the stairs, and the first thing that greets you is this like mantle table with a giant Warlord Titan on it, which is stepping on a mastodon.
Yeah. Mitch built that, by the way. Our co-host Mitch built that for her.
I can't imagine this.
Which was he said it took him a long time, and he kept sending pictures of it, and it was like, I made another third of a leg, and I'm just like, this looks terrible. Why would you do this? Says the guy who, by the way, I've literally just ordered the hard-on, the giant Tyranid dragon. So that'll be my big Forge World project that for the next few months.
The rules are actually decent now.
It is solidly good.
Yeah,
it is
maybe not like GT winning, but it's good now. Yeah.
I feel like I could win a GT with it. I feel confident in that, but I don't think I could win a major with it. The problem you're going to run into is it can't deploy in Dawn of War. If it could deploy, then I'd be like, oh, okay. But GW is just like, we have all these models that are bigger than 8 inches, so let's make all of them screwed in one of the deployment maps. It's not.
But you might be able to publish like a YouTube video explaining why you think it should be able to be deployed. Anyway. All right. Well, it's going to be an amazing weekend of 40K, so do tune in. Details are all on charityhammer.com, the schedule, who's playing what, all the matchups and everything. Will there be another, because for Charity Hammer, I think Peter and them were hosting lists on statcenter.com or something. What are you going to do about lists?
The lists are even better organized than last year. They are in folders by game, and we will be sharing that soon. So you look at what game you want, you open the folder, both lists are there. So very easy to find the list for the games, and all the RTT lists are all put together. What we'll be doing for them is kind of fun. We're going to do an episode of Biff Pod in the next week, probably this weekend, and we're going to have Nick Nanavati and John Lennon from The Art of War on, and they're going to critique the lists, and then they're going to fill out their bracket predictions live on the show. We're going to talk through the matchups and say, okay, well, in the first round, Colin's playing Tyler. It's White Scars into Tyranids. Here are the lists. What do you think of the lists? Who do you think wins and why? And we'll have them fill out their brackets and see how well they do. And when we do that, we'll also post all those lists and let everybody else take a stab at guessing as well. I think last year we got 65 guesses, which wasn't that many. So we'll try to, maybe we can get triple digits. Maybe we can get 100 people to guess this year. That'd be pretty cool.
Are you doing that show live on Twitch or just recorded?
Yeah, live on Twitch. Probably Sunday, but we don't have this completely figured out. Check out facebook.com/BiffPod for updates on when we go live with our show. Live now, much like CanHammer does, and man, is it fun!
Yeah,
it's so much better.
Yeah.
So much better.
It totally is. And if you don't know the channel, twitch.tv/BiffPod, and that's where the stream 1 will be, and then right here on CanHammer will be stream 2. And so my final question is, are the lists all from the GW app? Oh!
I have an unpopular opinion of the GW app. I think that the army builder in it is a wonderful start, and they said it wasn't done, and it's not.
Yep.
But it is not. But it is not currently usable. You can't do. There's a bunch of stuff you just can't do. It doesn't like. I tried to make my hard-on list. It sounds terrible when I say it. Horadon. I'm going to call it that. I just decided. Now it sounds like that sounds dirty as well. They all sound dirty. Anyways, Big Dragon. I tried to make my Big Dragon list, and I couldn't give it an adaptation, like a very simple Tyranid thing. So there's stuff missing, but I think they're off to a great start, and a bunch of the stuff that they've done in there is just better than Battlescribe.
Yeah.
There's a lot of UI stuff in there that is just smarter. Like pick the unit and tell us which detachment you want it in is great, right? Because anytime you're doing split detachments, to have to continually move them around move units around as hard in Battlescribe. So I think long term it is going to be the standard if they continue to put development time into it. But to answer your question, I suspect that almost none of the lists were built in for Hammer Out Cancer. I know my lists are still being built in Battlescribe. Some of my friends just build them by hand, and I don't trust my math nearly enough to do it by hand.
Yeah,
I do double check Battlescribe before going to a tournament. Back in the before times, we used to go to tournaments.
Yeah,
and I always used to check the math by hand just to make sure that Battlescribe wasn't going to get me a red card.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think give it like 6 months, and as I said at the beginning when they first announced that they were finally releasing an Army Builder app, probably all the big tournaments and then eventually all the other tournaments will adopt it as the standard format by which you have to submit your list, probably. So it needs some work, but it will get there.
Yeah, and if it does become usable, I will happily pay for it and use it. I think there's great potential there from what I saw, but obviously they have a long way to go. Lots of little issues to fix. My concern is, will GW actually invest time in this for the next 6 months to a year or whatever is necessary to fix it? Because it looks like there wasn't a lot of money put into it, just by the state in which it was released, because they've been working on it for a while and it was completely unusable, and kind of still is. So, I mean, cautiously optimistic, I guess, is where I'm standing there.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I had to swap headphones. My AirPods were not charged, and I didn't realize. So,
no problems.
Sorry about that.
All right. Well, let's go on and talk a little bit about Ninth. So we're just about 6 months in, roughly, and whatever amount that people have been able to play. And still a pretty full release schedule. And so I was just thinking it would be nice, since we had Colin on here, and to get your thoughts on what you think of Ninth so far.
I think it's great. I think they have done a wonderful job. And not read their comments on their Facebook posts. I think
that's just good advice in general.
Yeah, exactly. We only get like one comment per post, so it's easy for me to keep up on ours. But if we were popular, I think it'd be a real issue. So I think that they did incredible things to the game. And it's kind of a bummer that it's actually not kind of a bummer. It's a huge bummer that this is the time that we have 9th edition, right? That it didn't come out at a time where I could go to tournaments all the time. So at the highest of levels, the game itself changed some. The missions changed everything. The missions are the real paradigm shift. And I know that they're not perfect. I get that there's secondaries that just hose armies. I think that and also the specialty secondaries that Marines have, like Oath of Moment and stuff, are just bonkers. Like, there's massive imbalance in the secondaries, and that'll all get fixed. But the core principle is you have to play the mission or you lose. And 40K needed that. And also 5 turns, and also more turns. Also, close combat's actually better, which is not at all what any of us thought when we read the rules. But all of those things together make you have a game where you are both engaged for all 5 turns. I rarely play a game of 40K now where I get an hour into it and we're just going through the motions to get it finished. Even when I win soundly, I find that in the 5th turn of the game, my opponent and I are super engaged. We have a full 5 turns of absolutely playing the game together. And also a lot more closer games where you didn't just shoot your opponent off the table. So I think they've done an incredible job of making it more interesting. And I'm someone that has been critical of them in the past when they do things like, rather than fixing Ynnari, destroying it. Well, Ynnari, I admit, was bad and was too powerful. But what Ynnari gave some of us that wanted it was a very intellectually challenging army to play that allowed us to be challenged. And I have incredible amounts of anxiety. I need the most things going on in my head as possible to be calm and have fun. I can't play I'm going to sit on my side of the table and blast you list. I can't do it. I have to be more engaged than that. So for someone like me, when they say, okay, well, high mobility, close combat armies are great now. I'm like, oh my gosh, can I just play all day long, every day for the rest of forever? So yeah, just massive improvements. The missions need tweaking, but hey, the ITC missions weren't perfect originally either, and they needed tweaking. And by the way, I like the current state of these missions better than the last state of the ITC missions. No slamming on Frontline there. The ITC missions were great. But like Killmore being gone, which if you had asked me what do the missions need, I never would have thought of Killmore needs to be gone. I never would have thought of that. And Killmore points being gone is like the most important change in the game.
Yeah, and there was a big problem with Killmore, and that was that it was rewarding you for doing something that was already helping you win the game. So it was kind of this feedback loop where by scoring your Killmore, you're getting better board position at the same time, and it was just like too much.
Yeah, Francois, that's absolutely wonderfully put. And the other thing is, the more subtle thing there is also the effect on MSU. So in ITC, MSU was heavily penalized because of Killmore and also Death of 1,000 Cuts. And what that does is it doesn't say when you're building your army, don't do MSU. It says armies that have to do MSU can't work. That's what it actually says. Yeah, there's a lot of you're not actually like Eldar. Building an Eldar or Dark Eldar army isn't about, oh, we'll just take bigger units. Those armies are designed to be MSU. That's the way their codexes are built. So it's unfair to penalize that. And it's unfair to have armies like Orcs walk up to the table and know that they're going to give up max secondaries. Like that's not fair either. And there's still a little of that. There's still a little bit of like Thousand Suns and Grey Knights, armies that have a lot of Psychers, Zinch Demon, like Pink Horrors and stuff. All that stuff giving up secondary points isn't great. I think Bring It Down is still a problem. I think that in 8th edition, I also played in 2nd edition, but not in tournaments. I was 15. In 8th edition, there was problems with units like groups of units that have lots of wounds, like the Custody Spikes, where they gave up too many secondaries. And we have that now there's certain things that just hemorrhage secondaries, like Mortifiers and Ridge Runners and the Blight Haulers that Zach is using. And there's these things where it's like, and mech cannons, right, for Orcs. There's stuff where it's like, you have to take this in bulk, and if you do, you're going to regret it because they're going to kill it all and they're going to get 15 points on that secondary. So there's still things that need to be improved, but the general state of the game is just so much improved. And I'll talk about how the Codex designs are different too. But before I do that, I'll pause since I've been talking a while and see if you guys wanted to say anything about all of that or ask me anything.
Yeah. So from my point of view, everything you said, I agree with. And for me, one of the most noticeable things, just visually and play wise, and totally enhanced that engagement that you talked about. And was actually the smaller table with the increased terrain density. Mm-hmm. And I've always played with more dense tables, and people should call me out for that sometimes, but it's just way better than playing on an empty table, right? And now that the table's even smaller, and although it was a criticism at first that everything is kind of center-centric, in fact, it just makes the game way more engaging. There's no more, I'm over here in this back vanguard corner, you're over there in that back vanguard corner, and maybe a little bit of something happens in the middle, right? It's like, so even in games, as you said, where I'm losing or actually I haven't had too many blowouts, it's still down to turn 5, you still feel like you can make an impact and maybe come back in this game. It's way more engaging, as you say.
Yeah. The one issue.
Table's cool.
One issue, though, is that if you don't have that terrain density, with the proper terrain density, it works beautifully, and I love it. If you don't have the right terrain density, and not every store, not every RTT or even GT or tournament will have enough terrain to make it work, then it quickly starts to fall apart from the games that
I've played. And that is my biggest issue with 9th edition, is what you've just talked about, is that this is all great, except that they didn't give us a standard for terrain. Mm-hmm. They needed to useless. They needed to say, They needed to say for a Strike Force mission, that's what 2,000 points is called, right? Strike Force?
I think so.
For a 2,000 point game, let's go with that. 2,000 American points, just so we know what we're talking
Freedom
about.
points.
Yeah, freedom points. For a 2,000 point game, you should have this many large pieces, this many medium pieces, this many small pieces, this much area terrain. That's what we needed. It's easy. It's one article in White Dwarf. It's not a hard thing, and we desperately need it because what's going to happen is I'm not going to be able to prepare to go to an East Coast tournament. I'm just not. I'm not going to have any idea what's going to be okay because, like, I'm playing with Dimacarons. They can't hide behind obscuring their too many wounds and they're too tall. But in WTC terrain, there's giant 9-inch tall line of sight blocking walls that the Dimacarons can't be seen through. Doesn't matter about the obscuring roll, doesn't matter. But in someone else's tournament, they don't have that. And now the Dimacarons can be seen everywhere on the table 100% of the game. The difference of whether those Dimacarons is good is now hugely in question. So I think that we have a real problem where Biffpod is playing in a meta terrain-wise, Art of War is playing in a meta terrain-wise, and WTC has made a standard, which we're just using because it's a standard.
Well, I like it. I mean, I've looked at those WTC maps, and I quite like them. Now, I'm not a fan of over standardizing things. Like, I don't want to always play this mission on exactly this terrain set. That feels a little boring to me. But it's a good guideline. Like, the amount of terrain and the way that it's spaced out on those maps seems really good to me.
Yeah, it's a lot. I think it's a little bit too much. I think it's actually a little bit too much terrain, but as a predominantly close combat fan, the more the better.
Well, maybe that's because I also play White Scars right now that I like it so much.
Yeah. What if I just don't let them see me till turn 3 and then I charge their entire army? How will that
and
will
they
that
just
work?
die.
Yeah, and then they just die. Exactly. We had this conversation I'll share with you guys where Zach was talking about bringing 120 Plague Bearers as his RTT list. And I told him, yeah, that list is really good sometimes. He's like, what do you mean sometimes? Like, well, with the White Scar list, I'm literally just going to charge you first turn. The whole army. Just my whole army is going to charge your whole army and I'm going to win. And he's like, huh. And I'm like, it's like two up save guys with a lot of attacks are just going to mow into you. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, this isn't good. So I think the train thing needs to be resolved. I think it's a real problem, and it makes it really hard to know when we're having conversations about what's good. It's hard to know if Dimacarons are good. I think they're bonkers good, but if you're playing in a meta where Admech or Tau or Sisters can shoot them off the table on the first turn no matter where you deploy, they're probably not good.
Yeah, and it's disappointing because they did have this kind of terrain table with numbers and amounts and sizes for AOS, like last General's Handbook or maybe even the one before that. So it's not a principle that they've never explored before. They quite clearly said for match play in AOS, you need this number of this type of terrain, this number of this type of terrain. And so they could have easily ported that over, but they just gave us that crappy picture with those, which is just not good.
Well, the terrain in AOS is super different, though. So maybe it's easier. Maybe if I'm defending them, which in this particular case I don't want to, but I will anyways. Maybe their answer would be, yeah, but terrain in AOS is just nowhere near as important. Because it's not. You need some, but it doesn't even need to be symmetric necessarily for AOS. Where for 40K, terrain means everything. Yeah. I had a game at LVO against a night player, great night player, but a game at LVO where the deployment I was given had no terrain for my army. And he went first and I lost too much stuff and I just couldn't play the game. And that felt terrible. And that was my punishment for wanting to bring vehicles in 40K. And that's even worse now, is this idea that vehicles are a thing that exists. So
yeah, I've got 12 Lemon Russes staring at me over there that are very sad right now.
I don't think I have 12, but I feel like we could have a full Lemon Russ game between the two of us. Because Guard and Dark Angels are my armies that I've had for over 20 years. So I have something like 160 painted metal Valhallans when I do play Guard.
Actually, that would be a really cool game. All tanks, both sides. Lehman Russes, like the Battle of Tanks. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah. You don't have to worry as much about being charged then.
Yeah.
Though I will say, going back to terrain, that at least they did a good job, I think, of the terrain rules themselves, like the density, obscuring. That stuff is a big improvement over what we had, which was nothing.
For me, just take 30% of those rules and put them in the trash bin. There's just too much. It doesn't need that much. It doesn't need to be. There's too much, because what will happen is it'll be like in 8th edition. How often did you care about charging through a crater? How often did that happen? Right? It happened just often enough to be annoying. Right? Like I've been to 7 tournaments in a row without a crater. This tournament has a crater. Do I even remember what it does?
Well,
so you want, I don't think you want the massive plethora of rules they have, but I think obscuring is a great rule. I think obscuring is a great rule.
I like having forests because that -1 and then also the -2 to charge because they have that same
Yeah, that's
rule.
cool.
So craters, they feel a little pointless. Like let's put a circle there and you get a penalty for moving through it. I'll give you that one, but things like forests I really like. I think they add something to the battlefield.
Yeah, we actually weren't playing with enough area terrain, and we started doing that because you're right, it's more interesting. But I want to know from the people that made the game if they want something like a Dimachron or Magnus or Silent King, which are all people that care about this. I want to know if they should be shot on the first turn of the game.
So the Silent King can be obscured because he's, as a single model himself, he's 16 wounds.
That's a fair point. He's also really.
Not to nitpick, but I've used them before, and it's a big deal.
And I've played against them a bunch, so I should have known that. But yeah, I'm with you.
Okay, well, let's. The final thing we can talk about is we have had some Codex releases. So what do you think of the direction they're going in with the codexes? Not talking about format, which is way better now than it was before, but
they're really nice books. They really are.
That started with the rule book like format, and the little GT book is amazing. And but just in terms of like rules, they seem like they're getting rid of variable damage, right? Like so, they're and just the kind of rules and stuff that they're putting into these books. What do you guys make of that progress so far?
I like what they've done. I'm going to share my biggest complaint, and then I'll praise them so we can get the negativity out of the way. I hate that there's no digital copy of these books. That is beyond ignorant. That is offensive. I have bought multiple books I have bought digital and physical books from them in the past because I wanted the physical book for when at home and the digital book for when on the road. I will not fly to Minnesota to play in a tournament and bring all your books with me. I will not do that.
Especially
and the app, exactly, Chaos in particular is just like, well, I need 17 books to play this army. So it's silly that I understand piracy is a thing. It's silly that they got rid of the digital books. The app is cool. I actually like the app I use the app when I'm playing I can't remember how many wounds the Broodlord has, right? Super specific question about one specific rule. The app is great at that. But that's not what a codex does. I want to be able to read the codex and learn what the army does. And I don't want to have to go to a game store in a pandemic to buy a book so that I can then have the rules in your app. So that's my biggest complaint. But the actual book itself is great. And I think that I think Space Marines, I've no data, no one's told me anything, but I believe that the Space Marine Codex got moved up in 9th edition because of how bad of a job they did on the last one. I think the reason why these are only a year apart from each other, if even, is because that was a miss. The Iron Hands book, the White Scars book, with that Codex, that was a mistake. And I think that they know that. This is still, Marines are still good. They want them to be good guys. They're on the cover of everything, right? Like they were ignored for most of 8th edition. Just ignored. It's fine that they're good. They are much more imbalanced now, with the notable exception that I think that White Scars are broken, but that's because their supplements broken. I think Marines are very strong, but what I really like is a lot of the rules changes they made. There's a bunch of just BS in there that they just got rid of. They simplified a lot of things. They added yet again more units for literally no reason. And then I like the Necron book too. I think this Necron book has a lot more variety in it, a lot more theme in it than the previous Necron book. It's like 3 times as much just rule as the previous Necron book, which was needed. The previous Necron book had 7 data sheets and 3 of them were good. It's not actually that bad, but that's how it felt as a Necron player. So I think they did a good job with that. I don't think Necrons have a build that's S tier that I've seen. And I would have liked that from a brand new codex. So I'm hearing now that Triple Catan's really amazing. So we'll start seeing Triple Catan here, and maybe that'll be the thing that's really, really rock solid. But it's not Silent Silvertide that everyone's playing. That's not S tier at all. So I would have liked the Necrons to be a bit better, but their book seems really great. All the rules that have come out, the Space Wolves, the Blood Angels, there's like all this theme and everything's well thought out. No, I dig it. I really do. I'm super excited for the Drukhari book, because I think they missed an opportunity with the Drukhari book in 8th edition. It was one of those, it was a great example of this army's immediately souped because you gave them 4 things that are good, and those 4 things are better with Craft World Eldar than they are by themselves. And I have a huge Drukhari collection, and I want to play it. So I'm super stoked that we're getting that soon. What do you think, Francois, of the books?
Well, I'll just jump on what you were saying about the Necron book, because I agree that it's a great book, and I feel like that book is a good template that they should be using, and it feels internally balanced. Like I have a Necron army, and I like the book, and if you want to go more Horde, you can, and it works. If you want to go more elite, you can, and it works. If you want to go close combat, if you want to go shooty, there's multiple builds that just work, and none of them are overpowered or will lead to people on the internet complaining about how broken it is. But it's a good, well internally balanced codex. But a couple of units are better than others, of course. But I really think if they can write the codexes on that model, it's a good model to follow. Now, obviously, because it's an army that cannot be souped, because it's its own thing, and
yes,
you can do different tomb worlds, but that's it. It's easier to balance, much easier to balance than something like a Chaos Codex or an Imperial Codex. But I'm a big fan of what they did with the Necron book.
Yeah, that all makes sense to me. I think that there's an inherent problem with mono books, and so the mono book needs to be a bit stronger than an average book, because it's going to get figured out. And when I say it's going to get figured out, it's going to get figured out in 2 different ways. It's going to be figured out from this is what's the best thing from this book, Triptide, right, for Tau. The same stuff was in every Necron list pretty much at the end of 9th. Or the orcs, the same orc list was the orc list. You had 90 boys or 120 boys. You had Ludas. You had the broken relic. What's it called? Shock attack gun. That was just stupid and terrible design, and they should feel bad about themselves. But it was the same stuff in these lists. So that gets solved, and then what's the next thing that gets solved? How to beat that thing. Yeah. And so you don't see at the end of the year, you don't see people winning with Tau. Even Siegler, who won everything with Tau, took Marines to LVO to win the ITC. But Necrons didn't do well at LVO. Orcs didn't do well at LVO. One orc list did, but in general. So I think mono books are at a big disadvantage because of the way they write their rules. So sure. I think that I love that the Space Marine armies are like, okay, if you only take your particular kind of Space Marine, you get this thing. You get this bonus for doing that. And that bonus is a little bit too strong in some cases, White Scars. But in general, though, I love that. I think that's super great that you can just kind of do this. Okay, well, I'm gonna encourage you to do that. You can soup if you want, but that you have a benefit to not souping.
And as a game design approach, it's much better to reward your player with a carrot like that than to discourage him with a stick. So if you want, introducing a penalty for souping is bad, but giving a bonus for not souping is good. And it took them a long time to get there because soup has been a problem for a while. But I'm glad they finally did.
Well, they did also disincentivize soup with the new detachment structure, and you have to spend limited CP, right? Yeah. So that's a big disincentive. I
used to have so many 3 detachment armies. Yeah. And now it's like, that feels so bad, having a 3 detachment army. It feels terrible.
Yeah.
I had a guard list that I felt really good about. That was 3 detachments. It was a Talaran detachment, Acadian detachment, and a Scions detachment. And I really liked that list. And the 9th edition came out, and I was like, well, I can't do that anymore.
I actually played Mono Guard on our stream last weekend against Silvertide, the Silent King, and a whole bunch of Necron Warriors. And it was really fun to go back to my Guard roots. I hadn't played much Guard at all. It was a great time. Mm-hmm. They're still fun. So yeah, I think 9th edition, thumbs up. That's what I say.
Yeah, and I remember it wasn't too long ago. In fact, it was right before the Marine Codex came out in 8th that everyone was like, "This is the best 40K ever." Those summer days right before the Marine Codex came in and wrecked everything. for like an entire year.
Iron Hands were just so badly written. That the Iron Hands supplement was just such a massive mess. And the weekend that everyone, I was at a GT that weekend too, but the weekend that like everyone lost to Triple Repulsor, everyone, just every tournament was one, like top 3 people in every tournament was Triple Repulsor, and right before, and then GW like immediately nerfed it. That whole time, the Brohammer guys are telling me, Colin, that's not the best thing in this book. It's just the easiest thing, so it's what everybody's done. It's not the best thing. And then what happened at LVO? Well, like 7 of them took that list, and they did. I think the worst any of them did was 1 loss. Yeah. Like it's just that book being nerfed and the Marine rules being changed. That was a game cancer. That was a massive, much like Ynnari. I loved Ynnari and I didn't want them nerfed, but I understood why they needed to be nerfed. So, it needed to happen. It needed to happen. And by the way, the Brohammer guys will tell you the same thing.
Yeah. Oh, they did that. Right.
John didn't want to keep taking that list of tournaments. He wanted it nerfed immediately.
Well, it was also a somewhat boring list to play in a way, because it was just like, okay, you're going to sit there and be unkillable.
You know what's funny? It's actually Triptide.
Yeah, like, it's Tau better than Tau, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why Sigler was so amazingly good at it immediately. Is that when you watch him play it, he's literally playing Triptide with better rules. Yeah. Which is, by the way, White Scars are literally Tyranids with better rules, just so we're saying.
Tyranids, better rules. So we got a question from Raul Thomas in the chat, and maybe we should have Mitch on here to talk about this, but what do you think about Space Wolves?
I think Fight Last is super powerful. I wish the rest of their book was that good. I've read it, and I've seen some lists, and I've watched a few battle reports. I haven't played against them or with them, and I'm also not the Imperium expert on my show. But I've played a lot more reps of Ninth than Mitch has, so we've been talking about it. I think that that army not having, it doesn't have the broken apothecary, right? Yeah, it doesn't have the broken apothecary. Is a big thing. The apothecary is super, super strong. Not having that is a really big penalty for playing Space Wolves. Thunderwolf Cavalry not being OBSEC is not great. There's just things about it that aren't quite there. I think Space Wolves is going to be seen as a slightly below average Marine book, sadly. I own Space Wolves. I have quite a few of them. I would like them to be good. I'm not seeing it so far. Now, if you would like to come to our show and ask the same question, Mitch will regale you on how good Space Wolves are for like 10 minutes. So feel free to take me with a grain of salt. I haven't seen a list yet that I think is great, and I've watched some battle reports that were some pretty incredibly talented people doing really badly with Space Wolves.
In fact, the last time I played against Space Wolves was at Charity Hammer against Mitch, and he wrecked me with that Armor of Rust, which I completely forgot about.
Yeah. And it's really good right now. And they can get like 3 different Fight Last auras. So that's really strong. But I don't think it's enough. I think it's it's like they're not as good as average Marines, which are better than everything else. So like if you want to play them, fine. But like they're not better than Blood Angels or White Scars. Blood Angels and White Scars are just doing everything Space Wolves want to do better. That's all it is.
Okay.
Sorry, Mitch. If you watch this, man, I love you.
Shout out to Mitch. Okay, so final thing we're going to talk about before we wrap up tonight, other than actually being able to play again, what do you look forward to in the next 6 to 9 months from 9th edition?
Drukhari. Very excited about Drukhari. I would like a Craft Eldar book very badly. The Craft Eldar and Tyranids are my favorite things to play. I have beautifully painted large collections that my wife has painted for me that are kit bashed, and great love is put into them. I love both those armies. I love their lore. I love how they play on the table. And Craft Eldar are just awful right now. They're just not good at all, which I understand is fair. I've been playing the game long enough to understand how fair that is. That said, I would like the 2 armies I play to be elves and bugs, not elves and broken dudes in power armor.
That's fair.
How about you, Francois?
Well, I mean, I'm looking forward to more books in general, because I'm so excited about 9th. It's such a great rule set, but it's so early. and we have so few books that it's kind of hard to fully see where the game is or going, because you have so many of these super old codexes, like Guard Codex now, wasn't it? It was one of the first ones in 8th, right? So
yeah, it was like 3rd, I think,
Yeah,
like the
something
3rd
like
book
that.
of 8th.
Yeah.
And again, I also have a large Tyranid army that I haven't played in like 3 years because it hasn't been worth it, and I'd like to have a book for them too. And they don't even need to be like top tier good. If they're even on par with, like, say, Necrons right now, I'll gladly put the bugs on the table because I want to. But right now, if I pull this collection out, I have like 4,000 or 5,000 points painted of Tyranids, and I'm still painting some just for fun because I like them. But if I put them on the table, knowing that I also have all these other armies that are more fun to play just because of the state of the game and the state of the army, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Just more books in general.
Okay, hold on. I have to help Francois. He seems like a good dude. Tyranids are great right now.
Okay.
They really
send
are.
him a list.
Tyrannids are great. The list that Tyler's bringing to the RTT is good. The list that I'm playing at Hammer Out Cancer, I believe, is S tier.
Okay, so I have 2 of those barbed Yewer duels, and I can see the potential in those.
Okay.
So I can definitely do that, and a bunch of Zoantropes and Gaunts and Swarmlord or whatever.
But if you're a close combat player,
yeah,
you need to watch my stream games where I'm playing double Dimacharon.
Okay, I will go and look for those for sure.
Because the double Dimacharon is efficient shooting. Hive Guard shooting in direct is amazing right now with heavy terrain. So you've got Hive Guard and an Exocrine from the Kraken, and then you've got Dimacharons, which are better Gene Stealers in our list, Swarmlord, Broodlord, and a whole bunch of bodies. And you play the mission well, but you also beat the crap out of your opponent. The army's super fast. It's really fun. Lots of tricks. It is absolutely what I'd be playing right now if there were major tournaments. And here's the really fun part. I think it beats White Scars.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And so I'm actually going to play it against White Scars at Hammer Out Cancer to test this theory. I believe that it certainly has the tools to beat White Scars. So and if it beats Marines, bring it on, right?
No, for sure. So Darren, next time we play,
beat Darren. Yeah, beat Darren with some Tyranids.
Next time I play at Darren's, instead of bringing my White Scars or whatever, I'll bring Tyranids and we'll see what happens.
You know what? When I first started doing all the streaming and stuff on CanHammer, actually Tyranids was my most common opponent because you played it, Phil played it, everybody played it, like Jeremy played it, everybody had Tyranids, and then boom, I haven't played Tyranids in like 2 years.
the first game I played on screen against you was early on in 8th edition, I think, and was with my Tyranids.
That's what I'm saying. I used to play Tyranids all the time. I knew all their rules, even though I don't own a Tyranid model. And it's like, and then boom, it's like they just disappeared. So, all right. Well, thank you very much, Colin, for joining us tonight and letting us know all about Hammer Out Cancer. I hope it goes well and stay safe. And
it will.
Yeah, it sounds like it's been super well planned, so it should go off. Stay tuned for the BiffPod Twitch as well as the CanHammer Twitch for coverage of that event. All the details are on charityhammer.com, including the schedule and the donate button, so please donate generously for this great cause. And I wish I was going out there because it was this time last year. I was in Seattle having a great time. So it's like
you talked about it for like months.
Yeah, it was the best. It was the best.
Thanks, Darren.
So thanks for joining us tonight, though, to let us know all about it. And Francois, you too, I guess.
You take me for granted, Darren.
Okay, and thanks everybody for watching, for subscribing, supporting, being on Patreon, all those sorts of things. And have a great weekend, and we'll see everybody next week.